Football has always been a game of fierce battles, but few were as personal and explosive as the one between Francis Lee and Norman Hunter. A rivalry that went far beyond the usual rough challenges and heated words. It was raw, brutal, and ended in one of the most infamous fights ever seen on a football pitch. This was the 1970s, an era where football was war. No cameras caught every foul, no referees rushed to stop every confrontation. It was a time when players settled their disputes with sheer force, and the toughest men thrived. Hunter and Lee were two of those men. One was a fearless defender, feared across England. The other was a relentless forward, known for his sharp elbows and sharper tongue. Their paths were destined to collide, and when they did, football was momentarily forgotten. October 1st, 1975. The baseball ground. The tension was thick as Derby County and Leeds United clashed in a fiercely contested match. But this wasn't just about league standings. It was personal. Every challenge between Hunter and Lee felt like a warning shot until the moment they abandoned the game altogether and let their fists do the talking. What unfolded was something English football had rarely seen. Two top-level professionals dropping all pretense and brawling in front of thousands. The sight was as shocking as it was unforgettable. A moment forever etched into football's chaotic past. How did it come to this? What truly sparked one of the most violent incidents in football history? To understand the full story, we have to go back to the roots of this rivalry, the buildup of animosity, and the unseen moments that led to a collision course of pure fury. And if you enjoy football's raw, untold history, the feuds, the scandals, the moments that defined an era, make sure to subscribe, because this is just the beginning. To understand why Norman Hunter and Francis Lee clashed so violently, we need to examine who they were and why they were destined to collide. Norman Hunter was the very definition of an old-school defender, a man who played football like a battle, never shying away from a challenge, and never apologizing for one either. He was a key figure in Don Revie's Leeds United, a team that prided itself on relentless aggression and tactical brilliance. His nickname? Bites Your Legs, Hunter, a warning to any forward daring to cross him. On the other side was Francis Lee, a different breed of warrior. Not a towering enforcer like Hunter, but a master of football's dark arts. He wasn't just a gifted striker, he was a provocateur, someone who knew how to bait defenders, draw fouls, and win crucial penalties. Some called him clever, others called him a cheat. But Lee never cared for the opinions of others. He played to win, by any means necessary. Their paths had crossed before. Countless battles in domestic football, tense encounters between Leeds United and Manchester City, where Lee became notorious for his penalty-winning antics. Hunter, like many defenders, despised that style of play. He saw it as a betrayal of the sport's physical nature, a weakness disguised as cunning. Tensions boiled in the 1974 Charity Shield. Leeds, now under Brian Clough's brief and tumultuous leadership, faced an equally physical Liverpool side. The game descended into an all-out war, with challenges flying and tempers flaring. Lee, watching from the stands as Derby County's new signing, saw what was coming. For years, Hunter had been the enforcer, but Lee wasn't one to back down. Their animosity simmered beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to explode. And on October 1st, 1975, at the baseball ground, it finally did. The stage was set for one of the most infamous fights in football history. But what exactly triggered it? Was it a reckless challenge, a verbal jab, or years of unspoken hatred reaching its breaking point? The answer would come in a few seconds of pure chaos. Football is a game of passion, but on that October night in 1975, passion turned to violence in its rawest form. Derby County versus Leeds United, a fixture already loaded with tension, became the battleground for one of the most notorious fights in English football history. The flashpoint, a seemingly routine challenge in midfield. Hunter and Lee clashed, hard, a mistimed tackle, a deliberate kick. To this day, accounts differ, but one thing was clear. Francis Lee wasn't going to let it slide. As the game continued, Lee, known for his quick temper, exchanged words with Hunter. A shove, a glare, a taunt. Then the first punch was thrown, not a push or a scuffle, an actual full-force right hook from Hunter. Lee stumbled, but in an instant, he retaliated. A flurry of punches followed, wild and uncontrolled, as players and officials rushed to intervene. This wasn't a minor scuffle to be brushed aside. This was two warriors settling a score. The referee, struggling to regain order, had no choice. Both men were sent off. Yet even as they left the pitch, they weren't done. In the tunnel away from the cameras, the fight continued. Stories circulated of more punches exchanged, of teammates dragging them apart. It was a battle that had spilled far beyond the 90 minutes. This moment became an iconic stain on both players' careers. For Hunter, it reinforced his reputation as a brutal enforcer. For Lee, it showcased his fiery defiance. He wouldn't be bullied, not even by the hardest man in English football. But what were the consequences? Did this fight change anything? Or did it simply cement their names in football's history of controversy? A brawl of this magnitude wasn't going to be forgotten overnight. The football world had witnessed something beyond a mere altercation. It was a full-blown fight, live on the pitch, in front of thousands. The Football Association had no choice but to act. Both players received heavy fines and suspensions. Though, in an era before strict disciplinary measures, the punishments were far less severe than they would be today. But the damage wasn't just financial. Their reputations were now defined by this moment. For Norman Hunter, the fight only deepened his image as English football's enforcer. He had already been feared for his aggressive tackles, but now he wasn't just a hard man, he was a fighter. Opposing players were wary, knowing that crossing him could mean more than just a bruising challenge. Francis Lee, meanwhile, emerged with a different kind of reputation. He had always been a feisty competitor, but this brawl solidified him as a man who wouldn't back down, even against one of the game's toughest figures. His fiery temper became legendary, but it also earned him admiration. He had taken on Norman Hunter and stood his ground. However, beyond personal reputations, the incident raised questions about football itself. Was the game losing control? How far was too far? The spectacle of two respected internationals trading punches shook the establishment. Fans, pundits, and officials debated whether such aggression was simply part of the sport or if a line had been irreversibly crossed. Yet despite the controversy, there was an undeniable undercurrent of respect between the two men. They had fought, yes, but they had also understood each other. Both were warriors who played with everything they had. In time, their feud would soften, their careers moving forward, their fight becoming part of football folklore rather than a bitter personal war. But how does history remember them today? Did this clash define them, or did their legacies transcend that infamous night? Time may have moved forward, but the images of Norman Hunter and Francis Lee throwing punches never faded. For decades, the brawl remained one of football's most notorious moments, something fans, journalists, and historians would revisit whenever discussions of football's most heated rivalries arose. But did this fight define their legacies, or was there more to their stories? For Norman Hunter, the reputation as football's ultimate enforcer was only cemented further. The phrase "Norman bites your legs" became immortalized in football culture, a testament to his fearless, no-nonsense style. He continued to be a pillar for Leeds United, a defender opponents feared and teammates trusted. His impact wasn't just in aggression. Hunter was a key figure in Leeds' golden era under Don Revie, helping them to league titles and European finals. But despite his success, many still saw him through the lens of that one explosive moment with Lee. Francis Lee, on the other hand, wasn't defined solely by the fight, but it became an integral part of his footballing identity. He was already regarded as a top-class forward, known for his skill, intelligence, and prolific goal-scoring ability. However, after the clash with Hunter, his reputation for a fiery temperament followed him just as much as his goals did. He remained a Manchester City legend, winning trophies and eventually transitioning into a respected businessman and club chairman. But the brawl, for better or worse, was a moment that fans never forgot. Both men went on to have distinguished post-football careers. Hunter became a beloved football pundit, and despite his Hardman image, was widely respected for his deep knowledge of the game. Lee, meanwhile, played a major role in shaping Manchester City's modern identity, helping guide the club behind the scenes. But despite their achievements, the fight always lingered in the background. Even in interviews decades later, the infamous night was brought up, often met with a knowing smirk or a reluctant acknowledgement. Two warriors who left it all on the pitch, who played with an edge, who wouldn't back down. But in the end, were they proud of it? Or was it a moment they wished had never happened? Time passes, rivalries fade, but certain moments remain etched into football history. The clash between Norman Hunter and Francis Lee wasn't just a fight. It was a representation of an era when football was raw, unforgiving, and driven by personal pride as much as professional ambition. But looking back, did this moment define them? Or was it merely a reflection of the fierce competitiveness of the time? Hunter and Lee weren't just two players who fought on the pitch. They were legends in their own right, warriors of their clubs and symbols of the brutal, no-nonsense football of the 1970s. Hunter remained the embodiment of defensive steel, his name forever associated with Leeds United's golden years. Lee, a goal-scoring icon, played his part in Manchester City's success and later left an indelible mark as chairman. They weren't remembered solely for their fists, but the fight ensured their names were forever linked in football folklore. Even in their later years, the incident followed them. Fans never let them forget. Journalists always brought it up. And whether they embraced it or not, it became part of their story. Football has changed since then. The sport is faster, less brutal, and governed by stricter discipline. But moments like these remind us of the sheer passion and intensity that once defined English football, where pride mattered as much as skill, and where backing down simply wasn't an option. Perhaps the most telling aspect? Neither man ever truly regretted it, because for all the controversy, for all the chaos, it was never personal. It was just football, at its most ruthless, its most unforgiving, and its most unforgettable. But what do you think? Did this fight define them, or was it just one chapter in their legendary careers? Let us know your thoughts. And if you want more raw, untold stories from football's most intense moments, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. Because history isn't just about goals. It's about the moments that shook the game.